Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's start letting people in. And thank you for joining us and this amazing team of presenters. Okay, my name is Miriam Aliso. I am from RACE, the RACE Center for Transition, and I welcome you to this wonderful webinar, bringing allyship to life, implementing the Adult Ally Toolkit. And I am here with my partners in crime, Everett Dabler from RACE and Lorena Goratos from RACE. And Josie is not here today. She is recovering from surgery. She's doing very, very well.
Oh,
She will get the recording. So yes, so we have interpretation. I'm gonna explain to you how to interact. We have activated the closed captioning feature. Okay, so if you need interpretation, I'm sorry, captioning, click on CC, and that's where you get it. Uh, we also have interpretation to Spanish. Para acceder al canal en español, van a ver en la banda o cinta negra un globo que indica Interpretation. Hagan clic allí y luego seleccionan Español y oprimen donde dice Mute Original Audio. Esto último filtra completamente la señal en inglés para que puedan escuchar con claridad a nuestro intérprete de hoy, Luis. We also have American Sign Language. We have a live interpreter, and we have pinned our interpreter today for easy access. And then I am going to move the slides to our presenters, Michael and Erin. Take
awesome.
it away.
Thank you so much. Thanks for covering the important stuff.
Mhm.
Hello everyone. Happy Monday. I know it's the holiday season approaching and it's a busy time of year, so we appreciate, I know an hour of everyone's time is really
Mhm.
valuable with this busy holiday season. So we just Michael and I thank you all for being here and appreciate you all taking the time to come to this webinar. I'm sure several of you joined us for our first webinar in which we kind of introduced the Adult Ally Toolkit project, which has been graciously funded by the Raise Center. And don't worry if any of you weren't able to attend that first webinar, or if this is your first interaction with the Adult Ally Toolkit, we will do a little quick run through and overview of that toolkit for you. But I guess first, it's most important to introduce ourselves. So I don't know if you want to start, Michael.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Michael Scanlon here, also known in our Yeti crew as M4. I'm the fourth Michael in my family. I don't always use my suffix, so if you see, I got Janet. Thank you for your text, the support in the Zoom chat. M4 is fine. Michael's fine. As you have any questions for me, I work as many of us do. We all have many hats. One of my hats is proudly an adult ally for Yeti. I'm also the director of community and partnerships for Street Smart Ventures, coming to you from Connecticut. And my whole career, honestly, has just been about the theme, right? Has been about honestly the culmination of this really it's been relationships, it's been change making, it's been advocacy, it's been how to transform relationships into positive change. And so just so delighted to be here. And honestly, I'm actually, as you said, today's Monday, Aaron. I'm like, is it Monday? It's been such a blur. I think both the
Yes,
past year, because Aaron, we've been talking about this and we were really behind the scenes approaching this for almost a
a
full year.
year.
It's really
Yeah,
been almost like
if
the
not more.
calendar date. It's
Yeah.
been pretty close to a full year. So it's been such an incredible journey. And we can't wait to talk about this with you all.
Yeah, awesome. No, Michael said it best. This Adult Ally Toolkit really became a passion project for us. It was something that I think the Rays saw a need for, and we have a huge passion for in terms of talking about and implementing in communities. So I guess a little further background for those of you who I have not met before. My name is Erin Black. I am 24 years old. I always love to disclose that because we're going to talk a lot about youth and adult ally relationships here. I do consider myself to be on the youth side of things, but the past couple years I've been on that fun bridge of starting to cross over into the adult real world. I'm ready to go back to being a kid for forever, but unfortunately, that's not how life works. So I am a self-advocate. I myself live with a physical disability. I live with Charcot-Marie Tooth disease, CMT for short. Don't worry, it's a confusing name if you've never heard of it before. It is a neurodegenerative disease, so that impacts my physical mobility and everyday life. So I not only come to you from the youth perspective, but also as a person with a disability. So I'm always willing to talk about my own experiences. However, I also love to say that everyone's are different. Every young person and adult ally alike are never going to have the exact same life path and experiences in their roles. So, of course, take what Michael and I have to say, however you need to hear it today. But I'm really excited to be here. I do a lot of consulting work within our community through my company, Aaron Black Consulting, and I also work full time as 9 to 5 in pharmaceutical patient marketing. So that's a newer role for me this past year. I decided that the corporate world needed a little bit more advocacy and needed more patient voice, youth voice, centered around people's stories. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, where at the end of the day, the people that are experts, whether it's in transition, whether it's in everyday life, whether it's in advocacy, the experts are the people with the experience. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But thank you all for being here. And Michael and I are just really excited to share more about this project that Michael said has been over a year in the making. I feel like we've really been talking about this for like going on 2 or 3 years in terms of
Mhm,
the
mhm.
need for it, the need for adult relationships with young advocates to be stronger, to be more consecutive, to be on the same page. And so we thought, what better way to create a resource that isn't just a handout that kind of, is one of the ones that gets shoved in your desk or gets moved to your inbox, your trash.
Mhm.
And we said, what can we do that is truly an interactive journey and experience, which is why we've called it a toolkit. So we will kind of get into that. Michael, I'll pass it back over to you just to talk about what's inside the toolkit and how it supports, and then I'd be happy to open up the toolkit as well.
Sure. Thank you so much. And again, just want to say, like, I'm loving the turnout. I'm seeing familiar faces. We're all, meeting some new friends with you all. So again, as Aaron said earlier, I know we're all eyeing the calendar till holiday time off. So it means the world to us. You're here. I think, knowing, I'm a fast talker. So again, a reminder to myself, I can slow it down for both the interpretation and you as the audience members. I just get so excited, and clearly, we're all so passionate about this. I will say the high level overview of what you can really expect today is, again, Aaron and I will kind of give you a 5 to 10 minute glance of the toolkit. And that really is broken down really into what we have as four core areas. There's really the roles of adult allyship, relationships, implementing, and then investing. So it's kind of cool that each core really focuses on, the roles being awareness. Starting with awareness is kind of the foundation for a lot of positive change and growth. You're going to get some action steps for identifying relationship styles and patterns. You're going to get, again, just even more of those tools. And then it kind of leaves you with a big picture of what's at stake if you pursue, implementing the adult allyship, and what's at stake if things don't happen. And really, this toolkit is the response, as we've been saying, to what do young people need and what are the qualities that adults can really embody and grow and lean into to become great allies. And the cool thing about the toolkit is, as we said, our biggest hope is that you can live it, you can breathe it. We don't want this to be lost in email. And honestly, I've said this in our past webinar. And this is so true about life and in general, right? It's you kind of get out from this toolkit what you put into it. And I think we'll
Mhm.
talk more about that as far as strategies. So it's
Yeah.
just a really amazing, blended learning. There's videos, there's podcast recordings, there's reflection questions. So I think, to toot our own horn a little bit, I think, this is really the culmination of the generosity of our fellow advocates, of our fellow peers, our fellow
Mm.
allies, that this is really a love letter to all of you who have been a part of this. And it's just our biggest hope that this is just about progress and not perfection, and we'll definitely talk more about that.
Love that. No, Michael brings up a really good point. So, if I don't know if Michael, you mind, I know I'm sharing my screen, or else I would, if one of our moderators or Michael, if you don't mind putting the link that's linked in this slide, which by the way, these slides are all available on Raise's website. But if one of you doesn't mind just
I can
linking
do
to the
it. Yeah.
toolkit, awesome in the chat, just so if you all want to kind of take a look at it and ask questions, and thank you so much. Just so you kind of know what we're talking about. I don't want to waste everybody's time. I know. Most of you have had a chance to already interact with this toolkit and start utilizing it, read through it, skim it, whatever it may be. I know we did a prequel webinar before this where we went through the toolkit more in depth. So we're not going to spend a lot of time doing that today, but I invite all of you to go look at it on your own, because you have two of the many creators that helped with this toolkit here right now to ask questions to. So, but Michael, you really do bring up an excellent point, which is that Michael and I may have put this toolkit together and designed it and helped structure it and lead the project, but at the end of the day, this is not our toolkit. We surveyed, and we'll get into this, we surveyed, I mean, at this rate, hundreds of young people and adult allies alike to gather more about their experiences working in the field, working outside of the field. There was not one experience like another. And we just said, as an adult ally, what are you missing? Or as a young person, what are you missing in terms of relationships with the adults that you work with on a daily basis? So I invite you all to take a look at the toolkit a little further. If you all just give me one moment, I'm going to be sharing my screen to kind of show you a little bit more in depth. Michael, do you just mind confirming? Can you see me flipping through the toolkit
Yep.
right now?
You're good,
Okay,
Aaron. Yep.
awesome. So like I said, I wish I could go page by page because we really did spend that much time on each one. Um, but I think a lot of the themes that you're going to see in here go back to these four things. What is the role of an adult ally? This is something we're going to talk about more in depth, in terms of it's not just showing up as an adult. It's not just fulfilling your job duties or your description bullet points. It is not just being present with young people. It's really understanding what the difference between just being an adult versus being an adult ally looks like. So we always say laying the groundwork is the first place to start. Then that's going to transform into what I believe is the most important secret ingredient to all the work that we do. And Michael and I literally stay up talking about these things because we both feel so passionate about it. I wish I was kidding. But relationship building. I think sometimes it seems so obvious to a lot of us. But I think truly sometimes we say, why isn't my youth program working? Why isn't my
Mhm.
model working? On paper, it's perfect. But it all comes back to that authenticity, the power
Mhm.
of relationships. Then that goes into actually, how do I do this? And this is where we are today and why we decided to host an entire webinar about implementation. How do we actually take, okay, what a great story that we had a young person submit. What a great presence from an adult ally in this section of the toolkit. But how do you actually hear those stories and turn them into things that you can do in your everyday roles? So, like I said, I wish that we could go step by step, page by page, but I invite you all to do that on your own. And then lastly, our final thing, I think that kind of wraps it up, is something we'll give a shout out to Everett since he's on here and has been helping us, guiding us through this whole toolkit process. One thing I know we talk about a lot is once you actually become an adult ally yourself, myself, I'm a prime example. I'm 24 years old. I'm just starting to navigate life as an adult. And I don't know, how do I now pour back into the young people? Or maybe you're well into your adult ally journey and you're like, I still am missing something. There's still some connection. How do I now go back and invest in someone else? So, like I said, I'm not going to go super in depth, but just please, right now we're visually just showing you some of the pages, some of the wonderful stories. There are podcast episodes, there are resources made from both young people and adult allies alike. There's interactive pages, there's quotes, there are real tangible activities in here to help you kind of align with some of those things that we're discussing. We are so proud of this toolkit, and we did really keep in mind accessibility. I know somebody hears multimedia toolkit and immediately red flags around accessibility go up. And that was a huge conversation we had with multiple people, people that use screen readers, people that love visuals, right? We have both ends of the spectrum. But we also have this entire toolkit available as a content only toolkit. So none of the extra layers that maybe a screen reader, although it is screen reader accessible, everything has all text, everything follows contrast rules. Sometimes you don't want to deal with that. Your screen reader's tired. We're all tired, right? So we do have a content only toolkit that is also available in that link that Michael put in the chat. So please take a look. We totally respect that everyone learns a little differently, which is why this toolkit has multiple types of ways to consume it. So like I said, I'm just doing the quickest flip through right now just to give you an overall atmosphere. Because next, I'll pass it back over to Michael. I'll start resharing my screen again. We're gonna get into some of the barriers, which I know is so hard. It's so hard to decide. Do you start with the barriers? Do you start with the
Mhm.
things going
Mhm.
well?
Mhm.
But we decided for the sake of implementation and going over that with you all. We've received feedback. We're very open to feedback about this toolkit, and we've taken some of the biggest conversation points that we had during our data, which is currently on the screen and hyperlinked. Feel free to read about it further. But please feel free to share with us as we're giving you some of the top barriers that we faced. We appreciate if you all jump in as well. So let me go back to presentation, and I will pass it back over to you, Michael. Let's
Thank you so
go.
much, Erin.
There we
And
go.
yeah, I did want to just talk for a second. And I think as Erin and I were, really this is, as we're thinking about it, this is your hour. And I know we're going to try to really balance us presenting to you, but we really would love to get and hear from you of what's working, what's not working. But I think, we did, as we were planning this, really feel strongly that I think without sometimes acknowledging the problems, and I say that not just like Aaron and I think we've talked with many of you here on the webinar with us. You've been either on a phone call with me or Aaron or us as a group, or like you may have gotten text. So I think these are some of the top three barriers that we feel, again, are not all encompassing, but I'd say as a safe bet, are something I think maybe all of us, no matter what your role is, I think may seem really familiar. And I think that first barrier is that adults want to be supportive, but aren't always sure what their role is. And I remember actually bringing this up. I was at a community of practice meeting in Connecticut. This is like a year or something ago, right? And I think I was feeling a little bit of a blend of frustration and passion, which is kind of the space I can live in these troubled times sometimes. But I think, I honestly was trying to bring it home to a room of change makers and policymakers that at the end of the day, we could talk till we're all blue in the face, but I think that we all can do something. And I like at that moment, I didn't know what else I could say to kind of ground us all in a conversation of where to go. But I think we want to at least start that there with you is like there is the security and knowing we all can make a positive difference. And so throughout the toolkit, as you're seeing here, there's the understand your role section, which really, again, as you're seeing here, some reflective practices and prompts, as in, am I leading too much? Am I stepping back too far? What does sharing power look like? And there's actually a section, a top tip, and it's actually on, should be page 12 in the toolkit. There's a scale of allyship. And I said earlier that part of the toolkit in the earlier section is really awareness raising. And that is a fantastic tool. And those of you in Yeti know, I don't know if Michael Storrs here, it's kind of the inside Yeti joke that I always cover Heart's Ladder, which is a framework to really help raise awareness to how youth friendly are your programs, are your practices. And so this is kind of something Aaron made, which is incredible, that this is our own condensed version of awareness raise and to kind of say, hey, just to ground us all in where are you at and then we'll talk about too, really the intention of the toolkit too is, as Erin said, there's not one pathway to be adult allies. There are adult allies here in the room with us, who I would say their greatest strength is, providing opportunities to young people. There's another adult ally here who I would argue is one of their greatest strengths is being supportive, always the first one to send a text message, provide that support. So we say this not that there's this one linear pathway, but I think there is some comfort and just security in knowing that there is a scale we can always move forward. It's really about those practical expectations and steps that it's not about being black and white, but where it's all about discovering those shades of gray. Erin, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I actually, and if I apologize, if anyone sees me looking over, I have the chat sitting on my monitor, so I make sure I don't miss anything. And actually, I see Emily asked such a great question that I was just responding to, but we might as well talk about it because it adds to this perfectly. Emily was asking, if you participate with youth on certain things, is that overpowering? Is that participating too much? And Everett, I think, said it best. Something I think that we struggle with as adult allies is that sometimes we're too afraid to do the wrong thing that we do nothing at all. We're
Mm,
too afraid to say the wrong thing or take up too much space or not enough space for young people. And young advocates need you to give them that authentic feel. Hey, I'm
mm,
going to do this with you. Hey, this is our space, not my space, and vice versa. I know, Michael, you said it at the beginning of this in your introduction, and I love it, but it really is all about progress and not
mm,
perfection. And I
mm,
think some of the adult allies that I have had the pleasure of working with, a big piece of feedback they always give is, I just don't want to mess up. I don't want to be perceived as the wrong kind of adult in my young person's life. Or maybe they already have been perceived in a way that it just isn't true from a young person. And I feel the biggest way to get over that, talking about this scale of allyship, is saying, where am I currently? Being
mm,
so vulnerable and real with yourself and saying, am I not involved enough? Am I too involved? And finding that way to just start to reinvent your power dynamics of your organization, of the group that you're working with. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to those relationships that we're talking about. Your youth will never feel that you're overpowering if they know who you are truly, right? Not just, oh, Miss Erin, oh yeah, I know these very broad kind of things about her and what her job is supposed to be, right? A youth won't appreciate that. If a young person knows, oh, I have a dog named blah blah blah, my favorite color is blah blah blah, right? Those are things that seem so silly in the moment, but truly take where you are on the scale and start to open up the level and
mm,
that vulnerability, the relationships, which I think is very, very important. But
mm,
I'd be curious just in the chat if anyone feels comfortable. Is this a barrier in terms of not always knowing exactly how to approach your role as an adult ally? Is this something that anyone has struggled with? Or is this something that anyone has found a really awesome grand solution? I know we have several. This is an entire section of the toolkit, so we encourage you to dive deeper into that. But I'm just curious if anyone else wants to share their experiences. We'll open up the chat for that as well. But in the meantime, I can keep on. Oh, Michael, actually, this was a huge point that you brought up. I'm not sure. I'll let you talk about this just since it was kind of your brainchild in terms of
mm.
conversation. And I think we don't talk about it enough in our community. So I'll
Sure.
give it
And I
back.
know I'm checking the time too. And I think we're pretty good on time, but I just
Yeah.
put in the chat a quick prompt just as an example from the scale of allyship, as just like a general like example of what would move someone up one level from directing adult to involving adult. Um, and it's kind of like those prompts. I think we as a modern society don't spend enough time. It's not that we're advocating, oh, spend all your time just thinking, 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 and never do anything. But I think it's again finding that harmony of, okay, like, and we'll talk more about strategies, but I just want to at least like that's what Erin and I would love for you all to think about, be creative. This is our shared learning space. But to
Yeah.
address this slide, yes, as Aaron and I were planning this, and we're like, before we submitted to Raise, I'm like, Aaron, what do you think about adding this slide? And I think I felt strongly in at least bringing this to you all because I'm curious for everyone here. can you relate to any of these things that you face, whether, no matter what your role, if you're a program manager, an administrator, if you're a youth advocate, if you identify as an ally? Because I think Aaron and I could talk for a lot of time on that. We've kind of witnessed what gets in the way of, I think, both people stepping into their power, stepping into their role of really, again, this fear, right? Of what do I do? And that's on, and also as we talk about system-wide big picture advocacy and
Mm,
positive change, I'm seeing tons of of good chat confirming this. But I think for me, I've definitely felt, and whether this is silent or spoken out loud, I've definitely had a ton of experiences when, both when I was a young adult as well as when I was trying to advocate and keep the door open for young people, is this is how we've always done it mentality. Or maybe you work at your agency or system, through maybe policies discourages experimentation, and that's where, and that's honestly where a lot of advocacy can happen, is when there is that creativity, there is this freedom, there is
mm,
this permission. I think that's a word that I should have brought up earlier. It's the permission
yeah,
to fail forward, to make mistakes, to have honest conversations, and
yeah.
just maybe there's a lack of safety to give feedback or try new approaches. So I think those, I've definitely felt very strongly like, oh, I've definitely been there, I've lived it, but also resistance to change. Um, you know, Fear of loss, of power, of expertise. Sometimes we as humans don't kind of examine or sit with ourselves of, oh, like if I make this change, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my agency or my community?
Yeah.
It can feel, it can feel kind of scary at times if we're not used to doing this. But I think, what about you, Erin? Have you had any, can you relate to any of these experiences here?
Oh, absolutely. I know the top bullet point. I think um, there are some people saying similar kind of things in the chat to all these things that you're talking about, but that's how we've always done it, I think is one of the most harmful barriers that our community faces on a daily basis. The amount of times as a young person I've heard that, now as an adult ally myself, someone who's starting to mentor other young people, I am mind blown at how much we are afraid to reinvent and to change. And there is something to be said about not changing something that's not broken and
Mhm.
really respecting the way that things have always happened. But there's also something to be said that young people are not attracted or comfortable coming into a space that doesn't feel welcoming to them or appropriate to them. And sometimes that means if your approaches are outdated or, all it is the same kind of pizza party mentality, come once every quarter and do something kind of bare minimum and it's youth engagement. That is great until it's not. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're saying, well, why aren't my youth leaders yet? Why aren't they stepping into these roles? And it's like, well, have you
Mhm.
created a space that's
Yeah. Yeah.
comfortable? And I know
And
there's
Aaron.
a lot of chats that I do just want to acknowledge because people are saying some like amazing things.
Mhm.
Everett, I really appreciate what you said about how an adult ally is not a teacher, right? Being a mentor is different than just being a constant teacher. There is a level of both involved in one another, but you're so right. A mentor is so much more at the same level, working your way up together. Whereas a teacher to me is someone that obviously knows something. Whereas I would argue young people are going to teach you just as much as you're able to teach them in those moments.
Mhm.
And I know I just want to acknowledge a few more comments before we move on to the next slide. But I really like these are amazing. I encourage anyone who's able to read through some of these comments. These are excellent, excellent stories that you're all sharing. Just to say, I know, Karen, I love what you said. Like this in general, I think sometimes we observe that students aren't becoming anything because we've never spoke that into them. We wonder exactly why students feel uncomfortable or our young people aren't stepping up to be exactly what we want them to be in our minds, but exactly like we're talking. Have we actually opened up that role yet, So I love Yeah, oh gosh, I want to just share all these, but I know we have to be conscious of time. I encourage you all to just keep reading them. But Quina, amazing point. I know in general, I think sometimes our fear of saying the wrong thing or stereotyping young people in an incorrect way, sometimes we actually do stereotype them in an incorrect way, myself included. I think sometimes that is what makes allies get that kind of, oh, I don't think I belong here feeling, which is exactly what Quinn is talking about.
Aaron and Michael, this is Everett. Can I just I'm trying to field all these lovely chats,
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
but I and I'm trying to answer one that was really direct from
Yeah,
Dana.
please.
She was
Yeah, sorry,
like
there's so many. I'm trying to keep track. So,
she was like, hey, we're from a, if you're a part of an organization that usually works with parents of young adults with disabilities, right, or kids with
mm,
disabilities, how would they use this toolkit
yep.
in your mind? I want to make sure we get that direct question answered because I want people to
No.
feel what this is for.
That's phenomenal. I think that's a really good point. I know a lot of people and a lot of adult allies in our community serve as both an adult
Mm,
ally or in a more full-time staff role at an organization, but a lot of you all are parents. And I think that that's a really important thing to acknowledge too, Everett. And in my mind, it is just as important that a parent of maybe a child with a disability or a young adult with a disability, an adult with a disability, just youth in general, right? Being a parent to me, of course, there's those different roles that I can't speak to as I'm not a parent. I know that there's times that the roles look absolutely different, but in terms of approaching a young person's life and their leadership, their transition from youth to adulthood, this toolkit, every single thing that we are trying to instill in adult allies is to me very applicable and
Mhm.
reasonable for a parent as well. In fact, I know, Michael, maybe you want to speak to this because this was your idea to add because of the overwhelming feedback we got about parental expectations maybe being different than adult ally expectations. And I think that's actually could be an interesting thing to bring up
Mhm.
if you were a parent reading this toolkit.
Yeah, and so full disclosure, I am not a parent,
Me neither.
but I think yeah, I think, right. So I'll answer that part first. So I think, right, expectations are such a huge component of relationships, right? And so I think, as I put in the chat when you were sharing earlier, Aaron, I put mutuality. And so when
Mm,
I hear how, parent expectations, I'm going to think, okay, what are the unmet needs of that parent? What are the unmet needs of that young person? And it's like, and
yeah.
what's the common ground? Of course,
Yep.
I can't, not going to have the answer for that dynamic and that relationship, but I think this toolkit, I personally feel, and I know you do as well, Aaron, is this is pretty universal. As I
Yeah.
said, you can get out what you put in. I can go specifically. I do have a slide dedicated to like if you literally wanted like a one, two, three, and go,
Yep.
it's like how to use it. But truly, it can. I think we both approach this that we didn't want to feel overly rigid and here's how to use it. But I am here
Yeah.
loud and clear. A lot of you do kind of want that. So I'll personally say this is that I'll share it again later on, but I'll go a little ahead on the slide content. I would say if it makes you all feel comfortable, think about it as like a three, two, one. Can you all think of maybe three sections of this toolkit
Mm,
or three tools that interest you most or spark the most like excitement for you? Or maybe honestly, and I'm here for this, is there something in the toolkit you don't agree with? Okay,
yeah.
that could be a conversation starter. Like we're not here to tell you here's how to do it in every which way. It's really about having that pathway. So I'm going to say
Right.
find three tools or three sections that excite you, interest you, spark things for you. Think of two spaces of influence you can talk about it with. If you're a parent, obviously you have your home,
Yeah.
or maybe you could do it in a car ride, or maybe you could, find it if you're part of a parent group. Could you bring this to a parent group you're part of? If you're an
Yeah.
administrator, could you bring this toolkit to, executive meetings and say, hey, look, here's this amazing toolkit. What are we doing to help support this work? How can we use our influence to help this trickle down and out and around? So I think it's really thinking about get each of us knowing our roles, our gifts, our strengths. Um,
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say, and then think of one accountability check-in, whether that be, hey, could that be like a Google Calendar reminder? Hey, monthly check-in in the toolkit, or like, could you have like one person in your family, in your among your friends, or could it be amongst your professional network to check in and say, it's really just making it come alive. So again,
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, 3 tools, 3 sections, 2 spaces of influence to share it with and talk about it, and maybe one way to not be held accountable, but just to become and maintain accountability. Because honestly, accountability has been coming up a ton in my work lately. And I know that's kind of like a 4-letter word sometimes, but I'd say accountability in the best possible sense. It's not punishment, it's not punitive. It's just, hey, what's going on for you right now, or what's working or what's not working, if that makes sense.
No, that is
Well,
a great point.
well, it's Everett again. Sorry, but I just want not to do a selfish plug, but the small part that I wrote in the toolkit is actually about
Yes.
I'm an ally now, just as M4 is too, right? We're the golden guys, is what we call ourselves, right? Because we're the old
Yep.
heads
Yep.
of the work that we do together. But I see people talking about like building bridges and creating connections,
Yes.
and the small part that I wrote in the toolkit, which I think is like, I don't know, it's like page 74 or something. I don't know. Am I even close to right? I don't know. Uh,
You're
it's
probably pretty close. It's a
it's
big toolkit.
actually the story of my mom
Yes.
adapting an adult ally mindset.
Yeah.
And even though she is my mom, the reality is I went into my 20s and 30s and now my 40s, right? And so it literally talks about what that journey's been like for her to shift that mindset. And not that she doesn't have mom expectations, but as a person with a disability, I take care of myself now. And so it's very different as to what that is, right? And so, yeah, it talks about our journey together and her being my ally and learning from her about how to provide guidance and support and
Yeah.
how to be there, but allow me to fail and allowing me to have my own expectations and her then supporting what
Yeah.
my vision for my future was, which I think a lot of this is about. So sorry again. I'll stop
No,
talking.
love that. And I just pulled it up just so I want everyone to be aware. I would say there are over 10 specific pages in this toolkit that do address that parental expectations, address how that looks different. And of course, while the initial creation of the toolkit it started as just an adult ally focused role. It wasn't created specifically for parents, which is important to remember. I also think as we started developing resources, hearing
Mhm.
people's stories, doing a lot of focus groups, collecting data, we were like, wow, there needs to be some conversation about that in here.
Mhm.
So I know it looks like we're getting quite a few questions, but I think for the sake of just getting through a few more of our points, I think we should just kind of cruise through some of the points and then we can spend the last 15 minutes just kind of doing question and answers and talking about how it's applicable to the toolkit because I just want to make sure that we're respecting everyone's questions and getting to them. But I also want to just make sure that we're sharing a couple more resource highlights with you all. And actually, one moment, I'm gonna just pull up the Q&A. I didn't have that up before, so I want to make sure that I'm um, not moving. Oh, really quick, this is a good logistics question. Is the button that says read and download where I can access the toolkit? That is correct. If you actually go to the toolkit website, which I'd be happy to do really quick, I just want to make sure we get that one addressed in case anyone's having a hard time actually finding the dedicated toolkit. Oh, of course, because it's hyperlinked, it's not going to work for me right now. Let me stop share for a second here. Give me one moment, guys. I'm so sorry about that. We all know how technology goes sometimes. Give me 1 minute. I just want to make sure that we address that comment as well. Let me pull it up. Um, and I
And
think,
while we're doing, oh, go
yeah,
ahead,
no, go
Erin.
go ahead,
Oh no,
Michael.
just while Aaron's getting that going, also, our next slide really, because we're tight on time. This always happens, right? I'm like, oh, okay, we
I
have a
know it's too
hour.
much good
It's
stuff to
pretty
talk
much
about.
2:40, so we want to leave about 10 minutes for Q&A. So we really want this to be your time. Our next slide really is talking about tokenism, and I think while Aaron's pulling that up, definitely. Oh yes, Latoya, we definitely, yeah. And if we're ever presenting on this again, yeah, maybe 90 minutes is that sweet spot.
I know there's
Even
too much.
even with me talking super, super fast, I could be an
Um,
auctioneer maybe. But I
Yeah,
think,
let me just to acknowledge Rory's question. So Rory, you are able to download the toolkit directly from this interactive flip book. That's in here. That's by clicking those three dots and clicking download PDF file. You also can download a copy only version of the toolkit if you're looking to use a screen reader a little easier, or just have less visuals. I know some people learn better by just reading, almost as if it was a book. So that would be by clicking the read and download button. And that was provided on Raise's website in that link that Michael had shared earlier. So I'm going to, without further ado, go to the slide that Michael was just talking about. I want to make sure that we have a chance, like Michael was saying, to address all of this wonderful information. All right, let me know, Michael. If I click resume, I think I just have to reshare. We all know how technology is in terms of, is
yep,
that good?
you're
Okay.
good now. Yep.
Awesome. So like Michael was saying, tokenism, this is a huge problem. I think that a lot of youth face as well as adults face. And I want to start off by addressing this barrier by saying, a lot of times tokenism is very innocent and it is so unintentional, like when it's done. I know I have been a part of youth initiatives where we just simply cannot get the numbers to not have a level of tokenism going on. There's always that situation. And I just want to say we fully acknowledge that. This is where we're kind of trying to take that next step in saying, okay, back to the drawing board, back to the grassroots that's going on. Why in the world? Where are the youth? Why aren't they coming? Going back to, point A, where do we go from here? Because I do sometimes think we skip a couple steps and then we're like, well, why isn't it working? So, like Michael said, we have several resources in the toolkit that address this. I do want to highlight one in particular, which is the Room A, Room B mindset. This is available in the toolkit, and I encourage you all to check it out. It's on page 34 of the toolkit link that we shared. But is the space youth-led, or is it truly youth-labeled? And, that's where the conversation of tokenism comes in. Room A, we have one person with a disability. They were invited to represent youth voice. The meetings on a weekday at 8 a.m. Are most youth available on a weekday at 8 a.m. or do they want to be available on a weekday at 8 a.m.? I'll let you answer that. The agenda was preset, right? It's meetings for the next 2 hours. The youth had no say in the conversation topics. Youth is like asked to share their story. Oh, come on up, Michael. Awesome. Tell us about yourself. It's a 5-10 minute presentation. They sit back down. And then it's kind of like, awesome, we did that. What a great way to highlight youth voice. That is not a bad thing. Everything that we just talked about, none of it is inherently bad. But now let's look at room B. This is a couple young people, let's say 10 if we're really working on our youth programming. 10 youth people who actually created the agenda of the meeting. They're not just sharing their story for 5 minutes. They're actually the ones leading the meeting, topic by topic. The adults are contributing equally, right? These are two different spaces and oftentimes two different mindsets. And I think that's something we address heavily in this toolkit because it is, I would argue, probably one of the biggest barriers that we hear of and we experience ourselves, right? So asking yourself, which room am I creating right now? And if you're more on the side of room A, because I would argue room A is oftentimes an easier room to be in as an adult. But if that is really, really the point of your mission of what you're trying to cultivate, and you're saying, well, why aren't the youth coming? Where are they? Or you have one or two youth that are doing all of it. That's where you have to say, all right, now it's time to transition to room B. Maybe it's one thing at a time. It might take years to fully become room B. That's okay. It's like dedicating yourself to see it through. And then I do see, just to try to acknowledge a few more questions, Emily, I know always is asking great questions. Hello, Emily. Emily had said, can parents use this outside of like a structured setting? And I think that brings up a great point about this toolkit, which is like Michael said, we are not here to write an infomercial. That is not the point of this toolkit. This toolkit is raw, genuine experiences. It is stories. It is experiences from our side. It is experiences from so many different surveys and conversations that we had. And like Michael was saying, this was not designed to just be a flip through, check, 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 check. This is really a mindset. It's meant to be a journey that you can kind of use to help guide what you're focusing on. And I would argue that there is no structured setting that this needs to be in. I sent this to my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. I sent this to my youth pastor, right? From childhood. Like this tool and this resource, I don't think has to just be specific for our community and the field that we're all working and navigating. I really do think that there is a little bit of something in here for everyone, and it's just an appropriate mindset to start to become familiar with. So hopefully that answers that. No such thing. This does not need to be used in a structured meeting, whether it's a parent or it's a youth leader, it's an adult ally. We encourage you all to take exactly what you need from this toolkit. Michael, I'll pass it back over to you. I
Yes.
know we'll leave some time for all the wonderful
Yeah.
questions in the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah.
I know if we want to finish off strong with this.
Yeah, and no, this is a really this one is a really really important one, as are all the slides. But I think, I was thinking a lot about this even like this, this morning, this afternoon. And, maybe some of you can relate to this, maybe you can't, but I think we did want to highlight that, relationship building is sometimes hard to quantify, and that can get lost in the shuffle of day-to-day work, responsibilities, or like data. And so you'll kind of see on the first bullet, systems value compliance over connection, which is, unfortunately true. And those of you who know me know I'm not like a data guy, but I'm a story guy. And I know like Quinna's here, she loves data, so like I'm laughing because like, but I'm understanding that data can also be qualitative. It's those stories, it's those narratives. Um and I think honestly, the big picture of why is this important to talk about is because it's really, really easy, both on like as a person, maybe in your role, or maybe in your agency, or maybe like system wide, that I've kind of witnessed, because I was in a meeting the other week too, where I kind of felt this. It wasn't really addressed in the meeting, but it was um, almost like a report out of, okay, like reporting out on, programs and expectations and, just data sharing, and which is wonderful. But I think I kind of witnessed a lot of fear, or like, oh, we wish we had more, higher participation numbers. So I think the reminder for all of us that, I'm not going to argue on taking away or against the power of tracking and numbers and all that. Like, I'm not going to argue against that.
Mm.
But I think that when you can get so lost in the shuffle or the fear of, oh, we gotta like just the go, go, go and not slowing
Check
down,
our
check
boxes.
the
Yeah.
boxes. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think that's where the relationship building really suffers. And that's where, again, it's almost like the self-fulfilling prophecy. So, like, the more anxious and fearful or frustrated, the less time you're spending on forging and maintaining those authentic relationships and connections, which are the heart of so much of what we all do, like in our work. And so it's just kind of the reminder of, how do you balance, the everyday connection with your own accountability? Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that, Aaron?
I feel like you said it literally beautifully, which is sometimes I think we get so lost in the logistics of youth advocacy and youth engagement that sometimes we don't actually like check our everyday life, right? Say, but am I going the extra mile to reach out? I know, Everett, I'm sorry, we keep using you as our example just because you're like in my vision as a moderator. Michael and I both, Michael is one of my amazing adult allies. Everett is another one of my amazing adult allies. And I think both of them, one of the things that's been the most impactful, don't take this the wrong way, guys. This is meant to be serving as an example, but it's never, ever, ever the tiny little oh, help me out with this project I'm working on. Those are awesome and important, but that's not what sticks with me. That's not why you all are my adult ally. Why you both are my core adult allies that have made such an impact in my journey as a youth advocate, as someone living with a disability in this world and navigating education and life. It's because of the day-to-day, hey, checking in. How did that presentation go? Hey, I'm here for you. Do you need to talk about that? Right? It is the language, the relationships, the everyday, not the shuffle, not the, oh, but okay, we had 10 youth at this meeting. Good, check. No more focusing on that. Now, did we, like, I think you're absolutely right. We get so lost in, is this meeting quota? Does this look good to others, right? That we really forget to dig a little bit deeper. So we, like I said, I know we've said this for everything, but we have a lot of resources in the toolkit and a lot of wonderful stories that are shared that specifically talk about this element, which is relationship building, which is something that I think we all can agree is the secret. It's the thing. It's the thing that's missing in a lot of places. We have something, for example, on the screen right now, we have a chart called Language Matters, right? Saying things like, oh, these kids, right? We all catch ourselves doing that. I say that, and I'm 24 years old. There needs to be a level of awareness. How are my words, my actions, my day-to-day going out of the way to make an effort? How is that formulating the foundation of whatever it is I'm trying to do? Story sharing, we talk about this at the very beginning of the toolkit. We think it's the foundation of the toolkit, is that life is not meant to be done alone. We are all meant to learn from each other. And one of the richest, most wonderful ways to do so is by hearing one another's unique life experiences. That goes both ways. That's not just for youth. I think sometimes we get caught up there all the time. Oh, we need a youth speaker. We need to find a way to get youth. That's great. And I'm not saying that that's not a good idea. But also, I find hearing from my adult allies true, authentic stories so rewarding. And I learn so much from it. I think a young person's going to give you what you give that young person. If you're vulnerable, if you talk about a time that you were in your 20s and made a huge mistake, that's important. It's not always going to be, did I invite them to the right meeting? Was I, oh, did I send them the right email? It is a lot of times comes down to the most basic things that we forget about, which I think is very, very important. I can't believe it, but we have 10 minutes left. We're almost at time. So I just would love to take a minute and kind of throw everything that we're talking. I know you guys have been so awesome. Thank you for putting stuff in the chat. It makes this like so much more engaging and just easier for us. And it's really cool to see that you all are willing to share your own experiences. But we'll go a step further. What barriers are you currently experiencing? What things are going so well for you right now in your own adult ally journey or your own youth journey, depending on who you are, and what kind of lens you come on to this webinar with. But what gets in the way? Where have youth called you out on, or are youth not calling you out? Are you struggling to even get youth? And like Michael said, I loved Michael's 3-2-1 approach, which what toolkit things are missing here? Of course, we are so grateful that the toolkit was funded by the Race Center and is now published. But it doesn't mean that this project is just a one and done. We want to continue these conversations. And while it might not be an immediate resource tomorrow, we want to hear your feedback, and that really does matter to us. So I know there's a lot of questions on the screen right now, but I would just love throwing it back to you all. What are your initial thoughts? We'll give everyone a minute before we wrap up. Quinna, that is an excellent point. Quinna said, it's creating that culture and expectation. Rarely will a young person want to risk overstepping and initiate that relationship on their own, which is so important. Truly, if you're not going out of your way to find a young person, there's so little chance that they're going to find you to do so as well. And creating this kind of open environment that they're feeling comfortable to is crucial. Janet, if you all don't know, Janet is a prime example of someone who serves as an adult ally, as a parent, as an advocate, right? Janet really is covering so many grounds in terms of her role, and she is absolutely right. You know what? sometimes the nonverbals can say going through the motions, which speaks volumes.
Mhm.
You are so right. Sometimes it doesn't take a you saying, you're wrong about that, or I wasn't happy with that. You are so right. No response is a response, a clear response, which is very, very crucial to understand. If you're not getting youth, why is that? Thank you, Everett, for sending a little takeaways from the meeting. I appreciate that. Um, Okay, awesome. It looks like I know we had some questions just about people making sure they got the accessible copy. And I appreciate everyone's just positive feedback. And like
Mhm.
Michael said, we are not opposed to tough conversations. If there's something in this toolkit, you're like, I had the total opposite experience. That's amazing. That's what we
Mhm.
want to hear. That's okay, right? Awesome. Thank you all so much for the feedback. Okay, yeah, no, Laura said, I find it difficult to navigate in terms of the links/content. You may want to consider adding something to the pages that can bring you back to where you were. That is a great point. Unfortunately, we didn't have a ton of like technical in terms of getting those cool little
Mhm.
like bring you back to the page. I'm not a tech guru, but that's a really good recommendation, and we will certainly look into how we could do
Mhm.
that. I know it's supposed to be hyperlinked. I know sometimes the flip book can mess up a little bit with the formatting, but if anyone does have problems with the formatting, it is all supposed to be hyperlinked properly to chapters. If anyone's having trouble with that, please reach out to Michael and I. We'd be happy to send you a direct copy of the lookbook just in PDF form for you all to save
Mhm.
as well. That might help with some of that feedback that Laura was sharing. Um, Yes, okay. I see. Awesome. Sorry, I'm just digging into some of these comments, catching up here, but I love this. Lila was just sharing
Mhm.
exactly what we're talking about, whereas you can have multiple roles, just like we've addressed a couple of times here. But having hired autistic youth as an autistic adult, it's probably been the most rewarding thing for me, which is, yeah, nails exactly what we were talking about. A lot of times this comes down to passion and
Mhm.
relationship more than it comes down to compliance or
Mhm.
logistics.
Mhm.
Um, I found switching to the business phone to a cell phone. Yes, oh my gosh, love these. To put AAC and texting was a game changer. Prime example. Youth don't really use email much anymore. I know I'm struggling with that. Emails coming outdated, flyers are becoming outdated. Love that idea. You said, you know what? If this isn't working, what are they doing? They're texting, right? Those are such great suggestions and such a great resource. Awesome. Well, I know we are pretty much at time, so if there's any other questions, Michael and I can just stay on for these last few minutes. If not, we can give you all a minute or two back. I don't know, Michael, if you want to close out or anything that we missed, but I know, thank you for just being here and being so willing to
Mhm.
engage in this resource.
No, thank you, everyone. I mean, those of you who know me know I've been, honestly, it's been before I present every single time, I always get a little nervous. And I think I was kind of especially nervous today because I know how much heart and soul went into this. And just again, I cannot state enough how much we are so grateful for everyone who was involved with your stories, your time, just elevating your experiences, your voices. And so, as Aaron said, we're not done. We don't, I think right now it's close to holiday time. We want you all to rest or relax, but rest assured, we'd love to see how can we help each other keep this growing. I will give another plug. Everett and Michael Store are part of hosting Seek Community of Practice meetings on
Yes,
youth
good point. Great
engagement.
point.
Everett, do you want to give a quick minute plug on that? But I think this could be a great way if you want to stay connected to a community. That's another avenue as well. Everett may have stepped away.
Try. No, I'm trying to unmute. Trying to unmute.
That's
I was.
always a struggle. That's, yeah.
So, our next meeting of we are expanding the community of practice that we do to include youth engagement and family engagement. So this is a great place to promote that. And our next meeting will be actually this Thursday, December 18th. And so it's really timely that you brought this up. And so um, we'll be talking about the future of our work together as like the Ray Center and NTAC, the people that of the organizations that support Yeti, and our collaboration together, and how we can get you and your center or you and your organization involved if you want to be. So come to the COP meeting, and then our next meeting after that is January 29th. If you would like to be added to that email list about the community of practice, I will put Michael Store's email in the chat.
Wonderful. Yeah, awesome. I know.
And they're usually from like 1 to 2,
Yeah,
is what it, or 2 to 3, depending on the time, but it's usually around that time, Eastern time, that is.
I was going to say some people were asking for the link, so in that case, they should just reach out to Michael directly for that, correct? Oh,
Awesome. Again,
yeah, I
just,
see Mary open.
just want to thank you all for being here. Perfect time, just right about 3 o'clock. As Aaron said, we are so open to any feedback, any thoughts. And we're just, can't wait for 2026 to see how this is being used. Let's keep it going. And we just know relationships are stronger together.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you so much, Erin and Michael, for your presentation. It's been
Thank you
fabulous.
all. Have a lovely rest of your
Yeah,
day.
thank you. Bye.